I'm a Republican, and I'm not a Republican in the sense that everything must have a green, white and orange flag. I believe in, since the days I was in college, the French Revolution, liberty, equality,
yes,
fraternity, but the equality thing. And equality matters in Ireland in so many ways. Marriage equality, equality to equal access to housing, healthcare. So it's kind of the French interpretation of liberty, equality, fraternity. But that equality one, I think, is one that we should always in politics be trying to drive on.
This podcast is part of the GK Media Studios Creators Network, helping people tell their stories. Become a storyteller today and learn about our podcaster network at gkmediastudios.com.
Welcome to today's episode of When You Choose You podcast. We have a very special guest today. Welcome, Cathal Crowe. Cathal is a local TD in County Clare for Fianna Fáil party, so he is part of the government coalition right now. And for me, it's an honor and a joy to have Cathal. As I always have my own style to introduce someone from my own personal perspective, I came across with Cathal a year ago, I think, when I had a moment in my business when I was looking for a bit of support organizing a local event. And what surprised me, it's not easy for me to ask for help, but the fact that in less than 24 hours I had an answer and I was sitting down with you, for me was such a commitment. So that told me that is something different about Cathal. So of course, then I reached out again during the year and was the same. So it was not an accident. So I was very happy to help and do a bit of volunteer work in November and December supporting Cathal throughout his campaign. And I was absolutely delighted that he get to continue his work. So thank you so much for accepting.
Thanks,
I guess you're very busy, and I am only delighted that you made time for us.
No, delighted to be on. And I've been on the radio many times, sometimes 2 or 3 times a week. Never done a podcast, so really excited about doing this. And my office receives about 120 queries a day.
Wow.
But we take great pride in quickly getting back to people. We don't solve everything. We probably solve a fraction of what comes in. But it's really important that when people reach out for help, that you get back quickly. And I enjoy getting to know you across the last 12 months, and I'm very inspired by the work you're doing and indeed this podcast too. So delighted to be finally on it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That's all about. So what was the story with this podcast for me was to bring people who are special from what I can see. And when you're a coach, you kind of see that the human touch in people. And I really want to create that environment where people can come and the listeners or the people who are watching, they can relate and they can say, okay, I can take something from that and do in my own life. So I think you are a positive example as far as I'm concerned, what a politician would be like, supporting local community, but also you are very human. You do a brilliant job for putting them together. Very professional, but also you didn't lose your human touch, which is very important as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, so I got elected at the age of 21, so I was the youngest in the country at that time, Smaranda, but I ran for election when I was in college. So my first ever election, I'm wearing a suit today in your studio. I didn't own a suit. I didn't have a car. I got elected when I was 21, and I laugh now looking back at it, but the first thing I bought, because you do get paid in politics, the first thing I bought was a PlayStation because I was still young.
So fun.
I was living at home. I took the second paycheck, I bought a shirt and tie, but the first one was buying a PlayStation. So look, I suppose getting involved young, and my other job before I became a TD was a teacher. So you're very connected with people all day long, young people, and meeting their parents. So it's a personable job. And if I'm ever not in politics, I want to be still working with people. I couldn't stand a job that's away from people, away from social interaction. So I think politics gives you that.
Yeah, exactly. And you really have that in your touch in your work. Tell me, what prompted you towards a career in politics?
It kind of accidentally happened. I was very shy. No one believes that, but my family know it. I'm still quite shy. My wife is more confident than I am. I think she is anyway, socially. But certainly when I was in primary school, I was very shy. And I can remember one time the school did a fundraiser walk. They did a 5 kilometre walk. And at halfway along the distance, there was a table set up with crisps, chocolates, drinks, and everything. So when I got to the 2.5 kilometre mark, my mother and father were very upset because I stood back shyly. Other kids were grabbing 2-3 bars of chocolate. I got nothing, and I went home very upset. And I was a very shy kid. I made loads of friends though, but I would always let other people speak for me.
Okay.
When I became a teenager, a few things happened when I was a teenager. One was I developed a deep love for history, debating. I found that whilst I'm still shy, people still never believe that, but that is a fact. And actually, I see a lot of shyness in a lot of politicians. Politics is it's work. Some of politics is a performance. Like speaking your
Yes.
podcast, there's a performance factor, but there are other scenarios where I still would be a shy person. In secondary school, I developed a kind of an inner confidence. I realised I had a voice that I could use. I used it sometimes if I was arguing with someone in a class. I could use my voice to stand up for myself. I would use my voice to give an opinion. I would use my voice to, for many good things. And then also in secondary school, subjects like history, as I said, the story of how Ireland had become a republic. I was born in 1982, so I can always remember waiting for the cartoons to start at home. Around 6 o'clock, the news would be on, and I would hear stories of bombings and violence in Northern Ireland. So it's in the back of your head. You're waiting to watch The Simpsons or Fraggle Rock or Sesame Street or whatever I watched in those years. But at the back of your head, you're aware there's something kind of big going on in the country. And it was, as I moved through my teenage years, that was getting solved. Ireland was finally getting peace. I was very inspired by that. I was inspired by subjects like economics and history. And eventually it was time to choose in my Leaving Cert year, what will I do in college? I thought about becoming a pilot. I thought about becoming a guard. I don't know how I ended up doing it, but I went on to UL and I studied history and politics. And it was in my final year of that, I decided, you know what, I want to pull all these skills together, my interest in history, special education, things like that. I'm going to going for election. And I succeeded, first time topping the poll at the age of 21, youngest in the country. And I'm probably proudest of that election of all the election wins. Yeah.
Okay. And since then, you are in politics.
Yeah, so since then, I that was when I was 21. I'm now 42, so you could say I've spent half my life now in politics, and I've contested 5 council elections and 2 Dáil elections. Thankfully, I've been successful in them. There's an incredible effort that goes on behind the scenes, as you know. There's friends, family, campaigners, but really the work in politics, it's first of all, I hate to say this, before I got into politics, I would have thought that's a glamorous job, and it absolutely isn't. It absolutely isn't. And
absolutely not. I can totally agree. Like I saw you from the horse's mouth, if I can say so. I can confirm that it's nothing like. I mean, to be honest, I think there are politicians what you can feel the glamorous side of it more than. And let's admit, like everyone in any industry, it's like pluses and minuses, but not in your. And I don't praise people easy. So I'm very critical. I'm very critical, and I pride myself being objective I can be. But definitely, you know that it's hard because you do it. You put the work in.
Yeah, it's hard work, very rewarding work, and I don't mean it. Look, we are well paid. I wasn't well paid as a councillor. Actually, I need to mention that because there's councillors in every town and village in Ireland. They get paid very little. They could earn more. They could actually earn more money than the minimum wage, and yet they do huge work. They do social work. They do physically to help their communities. They stand up. They take calls and emails morning, noon, and night. TDs, we do get paid better. The workload is immense, but it's so rewarding. This morning, before coming here to the podcast studio, I was helping someone with a homeless crisis issue, medical issues, and also working on some legislation I hope to bring in this stall around access to social media for teenagers and things like that. So there's such a variety in what we do in a day, and that's what I love. I would find it very boring if I wasn't in this life. But yet, the other thing about politics is there's no certainty. Part of that is it's a stressing factor, but also it's part of the allure of politics. It's I don't know in 4 years' time. There will certainly be an election. I don't know, will I be back here again? I may lose my seat, I may not. And the unpredictability of it, I think, has a certain appeal as well in a weird way.
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
it's the dopamine.
Yeah.
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 But tell me, I have so many questions from what you said. I don't
Sure.
know which one is first. Tell me, what keeps you going in the moments of uncertainty kicking in? Or like, how do you deal with this? Or how do you translate that for your family? Because I guess it's like you have 3 kids and
Yeah.
a wife, and how they feel about that, or how you make them feeling about that.
Yeah. So we early on, when I became a politician, I used to take a lot of things to heart. So when I was that 21-year-old councillor, I would sometimes wake up at night and say, gosh, I forgot to email Smiranda 3 days ago, and I wouldn't be able to sleep maybe, or I'd have to write it down somewhere in a journal. I would stress over things like that. I would also stress over things I wasn't able to solve. I would stress over the workload. But in more recent years, for the last 7 or 8 years, I'm not just saying this is the gospel truth. I am able to switch off like that. So I say to myself, it's a job, it's a big job, it's an important job, but it is just a job. So nothing goes on forever in this world, and at a certain time of the evening, I actually don't watch political shows at night time. I don't watch
Okay.
all the current affairs shows. I'll watch the news, I follow it, I have to keep up to date with everything. But by night time, I'm much happier watching The Simpsons or Father Ted reruns, or a match on TV, or playing with the kids. And I actually have one thing I'm blessed with, and I'm very grateful for it. I'm able to sleep so well.
Yeah.
I'm able at night time to say, right, I'm switching off. Now it's resting time. The other thing, and it's not a thing to brag about really, but I think my physical health could be better. Yeah, I need to mind myself better physically. Thankfully, at this moment in my life and throughout my life, I've had really good mental health. You know, some people are born very physically fit and healthy. I should be probably a bit physically fitter and healthier, but mental health, you would need to have strong mental health in politics because it could grate you down. And I do see some people who find that aspect of it hard. I have quite a thick skin. I take very little of what comes my way personal, and I make sure at a certain time of the evening and a certain time of the weekend to switch off back to family time. And that philosophy, I think, permeates throughout my family. My wife, my children know it's a job. My wife's a teacher. I'm a politician. And like, no teacher is working at midnight, and politicians should be switching off as well.
Actually, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So you were able to differentiate that job. It's a job.
Yes.
It's not your life.
Yes.
The life is different.
And it's a job that takes me everywhere. I'm very often heading back to Kilkee to do a clinic, and I pull over the car. I give myself 15 minutes to walk the beach, get some fresh air, have a coffee, and drive on. I often say to myself how blessed I am that my work environment is here, there, and everywhere. I'm not just working the Dáil. My duties today have so far taken me to 3 or 4 villages. I'm in my 3rd county today, and it isn't even lunchtime. So I love that. I also get energy out of burning energy, and I've no medical expertise here, but if I'm having a lazy week around Christmas time when there's no work, and I get tired and my immune system crashes and I feel tired, lethargic and lazy. But on a day like today, I have a jam-packed diary, and I get energy out of having a busy day, if that makes sense.
Exactly.
I have,
absolutely. It is the dopamine reward.
Yes.
And if you want me to tell you an explanation, I heard it from
Sure.
Neuro psychiatry immunologist. So he's studying what people with cancer, diagnosed with cancer, what differentiate the ones what are keep going, despite of stage 4, stage 3, stage 4, and overcome, and people who are failing it and not making it. So the thing is the purpose. So if they are driven from the inside by a purpose, they feel nothing stops them because they want to reach a goal.
That does make a lot of sense.
Yeah, exactly. So obvious was backed up with studies and science. So it is an element what is literally studied currently.
Yeah, and I really think when I was a school teacher before becoming a TD, I was a school teacher and county councillor. But I used to always say to my children, I don't think I ever had a student in my class interested in politics, but they were interested in sport, Irish dancing or gymnastics, whatever. But I think whatever your passion is, be driven in it. And politics is my passion. And I hope the day when I hang up my boots and retire from it, I'd love to help someone else in politics or stay involved in another cause, because that being driven and pushing yourself is what I get energy out of.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
I'm not someone who binges on 5 or 6 hours of Netflix. I would find that so boring, but doing this kind of stuff, I find so
That's
interesting.
exactly what happened to
Yeah.
me throughout the pandemic. So I was in a big corporate job at the time,
Sure.
and the context of the pandemic, being single mother with a 13 years of age, I said, not a hope that I leave that child at home with the internet
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
on his own. Definitely not. And I was like, okay, stay at home. And happy days, but what? Like, I was sunbathing for a day, 2, 3, 4 in the garden, starting baking, but I need a purpose.
Yeah.
I can't keep going like that. Was the PUP pandemic was great, but didn't make any sense for me.
Yeah.
I'm not doing anything.
Long term, it can't.
Yeah,
It can't
exactly.
work. Yeah.
Okay, so how do you manage when things are not going your way in politics?
Again, I remind myself it's a job. I can't fix everything, and I've yet to meet someone on this planet who's able to fix every problem. And the day politicians can fix every problem, we go away. The country doesn't need us anymore. So I don't take things personal. The nature of my job is to debate, to argue, but also to respect people. So I would, every day of the week, have to convey my position or the views of people I represent, and others disagree with me. And sometimes it goes wrong, or I could be pushing an agenda or a project that doesn't come through. It's just part of what it is. You mentioned COVID. I often go to schools and children interview me, and they ask tough questions like, what football team do you support and all this. But I'm often asked, what's the toughest thing you've had to do in politics? I found the COVID period, where we legislated to keep people 2 kilometres from their home, closing schools. I found all those things really miserable. They're the decisions of the last 5 or 6 years that one half of my head was saying, absolutely, we had to do it to keep people safe. And the other half of my head is saying, how miserable all that was. Thankfully, we moved on from that. But I don't take things personally. I used to take things personally. I still see some senior politicians take things personally. And I think they will find it hard to have a longer career in politics, because it'll grate you down. Every week there's a big decision. The nature of politics is you've a government, you've an opposition. The job of the opposition is to put us under pressure. And sometimes that pressure is huge. And some find that pressure too much at times. And some don't. And I think that determines, unfortunately for some, how long they're able to stay in this game of politics.
Yes, exactly. I think because I know the context of your family and the background and the support, and knowing that we are functioning very well when we feel in the childhood safe, seen, supported, and heard, I think that's your strength, because you have such a beautiful family, and seeing your mom and dad and believing in you as much as you believe in you. But I think that makes you so strong inside of you, that you had that bringing up in a family where you were like valued and seen as a child. What do you think?
Yeah, I think I'm blessed. Everyone's blessed. Yeah. Sorry, not some people. Look. Let's be clear. Some people find family life difficult now, but we weren't blessed with money or anything, but it was more or less a happy house. Of course, there were ups and downs. That's normal family life, but there was plenty of love there, and there was encouragement. The one thing I got the love and encouragement from both sides, but there's a trait or an attribute I think I got from my mother's side. My late grandfather, he passed away when I was 12 or 13 years of age, but he was a builder, not when builders were making lots of money. He used to cycle a bicycle, and he used to build houses, and he used to bring his building equipment on the bike with him. His journey home used to take him about 2 hours, because he would stop and talk with everyone. So he would stop, and quite close to Partine, where he lived, was the city dump for Limerick, where all the trash and rubbish was dumped. And around then, it was really sad, but people used to, like we see sometimes in Asian countries, people used to live around the dump, and they used to take items out of it to recycle, make a living from trash. And he used to stop up on his way home, talk with them. He used to talk with everyone he'd meet on the way home. He wasn't snobbish. He was interested in everyone's. And my mother has that same kind of thing as well. I am as I'm as inspired and interested in a conversation I would have in my office with someone who's homeless, someone who's young and going to college, someone who's found life difficult, has addiction problems, someone who's very well off and investing in business. I find all of those conversations, I'm helping them, but I also get something, I find it enriching to talk to them. It's the variety of people. And I used to always say that when I was teaching. If everyone in that classroom was homogenous, or if everyone out there beyond the doors of the studio was homogenous, how bloody boring this would all be. And I'm delighted with you now, Smaranda. My next meeting after this is to meet a vet to talk about animal welfare. The variety of people I meet today is what's the most enriching thing of all. It's better than any salary or whatever people can quantify a job as being about. That doesn't matter. It's the richness of the day and the people I meet, the variety of places I end up with. That's the part that I love.
It's such a joy to listen to you. Like, really, it is. So tell me what made you to choose Fianna Fáil?
Yeah, so it goes back to the mid to late 90s. So again, we were coming out of this period of violence in Northern Ireland. Bertie Ahern, I know for some people he's a divisive character, but in the late 90s, he was leading Fianna Fáil. He was leading peace negotiations in Northern Ireland. I was also very impressed by people like Tony Blair, Mo Molan, Bill Clinton. There was an incredible effort. So in those years, when I was moving from being a teenager to a young adult, Ireland was becoming prosperous. The economy was going up. Northern Ireland and the problems that were being solved, more or less. Now, still some remain. But I would have said in those years that Bertie Ahern and Fianna Fáil were very instrumental in all of that. So I was becoming politically awakened. I was becoming more confident as a person, and I did think about other political parties. I did at one point
you did.
think about Sinn Féin. I did think about that. I did think about the Labour Party at one point, but I felt at that moment of time that Fianna Fáil aligned with me. And the lovely thing I've discovered about Fianna Fáil every year since is that we're a broad church. So some parties have a very rigid line. You must stick to this. In Fianna Fáil, there are people who are very liberal, very conservative. There are people who are socially aware. You have people who are very Republican. There's a space for all of us in there. And I know people who don't vote Fianna Fáil are rolling their eyes and saying this is not true. It is true because we have a lot of healthy argument, discussion, disagreement behind closed doors. And I feel Fianna Fáil fosters all of that. So where would I see myself in that broad spectrum? I'm my friends laugh when I am a little bit left of centre, socially aware. But I'm a Republican, and I'm not a Republican in the sense that everything must have a green, white and orange flag. I believe in, since the days I was in college, the French Revolution, liberty, equality,
Yes.
fraternity, but the equality thing. And equality matters in Ireland in so many ways. Marriage equality, equality to equal access to housing, healthcare. So it's kind of the French interpretation of liberty, equality, fraternity. But that equality one, I think, is one that we should always in politics be trying to drive on.
And I think you try to balance, even if I'm looking at the landscape in Clare, there are good few women in Fianna Fáil in Clare.
Yes, there are. We've increased our female representation, and I'm proud to have helped some of them. One in particular I would highlight is Rachel Hartigan. Yeah. So Rachel Hartigan, she would be great to have on your podcast sometime. So Rachel is a past pupil of mine. I was her teacher when she was 12.
Was she?
And the story how she became a politician is worth telling, if I could tell it briefly.
Yes,
so,
of course.
About a year and a half ago, I got an email out of the blue from Rachel Hartigan, and I recognised that name. She used to be in my class years ago. I hadn't seen her in 8 or 9 years. I don't think I'd even know what she looked like at that stage. So she told me she was studying politics in college and she'd love to do work experience in my office. So I said, you can come in and we'll get you a few hours and we'll see how things go. And I was so impressed by how able she was, how capable, and so were our office team. So one day over a coffee break, I said, would you ever like to be a politician? And she said, yes, absolutely. And I said, no, slow down, slow down. This is a big decision. And I said, well, there's an election happening in June. You could run for it. And she said, I'll go. And I said, no, you really need to stop now. So I said, go home, think about this for a few weeks because it's a big commitment. And unwavering, she decided she wanted to become a politician. So she succeeded last June. And the funny thing is, I can't claim to be that young anymore. I'm 42. But I was elected 21 in the Shannon municipal area. She was elected 21 in the Shannon municipal. She's now the youngest in Ireland. She is outstanding. And she's someone we will hear a lot of in years to come. There's other fantastic females in Clare Fianna Fáil politics and in other parties. But, Smaranda, nationally, only 1/4
Yes, I know,
it's a
but
big
that's
problem.
why I
It's a big
compared
problem.
in my head when I said that Clare has enough. Like, I mean, I'd say good bit, but nationally is not.
Yeah, and
Why do you think is that?
so I've a view on this that some find controversial. They talk about gender quotas. I don't necessarily believe that's the only way. You do need a little bit to engineer more people to come. You do need to set certain limits, but if you start bringing in quotas, do we next start bringing in quotas on ethnicity, sexuality, age, religious belief? At what point do you have to superimpose certain quotas to make sure it represents society? I think that it's the barriers to entering politics we need to address. I want to see an equal amount of women as men in politics. Some of the barriers. So one of the things we have overcome in the last few years was there's no maternity leave available to politicians. That was one of the barrier, but
And there is now?
there is now,
Okay,
yeah. So that wasn't there before. So Helen McEntee, who she's
Yes,
very
yeah,
inspirational.
yeah.
She had 2 children in the last Dáil, and she took her maternity leave and she got re-elected. So I think we need to support things like that. I think the entry point to politics needs to be supported. But the teacher in me and the parent also says something happens socially in adolescence that we need to address. When I was a teacher, the girls in my class would typically exude confidence, ability. They would talk for the class, and the boys would be more reticent. But in the adolescent years, we're going way off topic here, but in the adolescent years, I don't know, a lot of boys, their confidence goes up. They speak, and you'll go into a university or second level class. Female voices get lost far too often, and we cannot allow that to happen as a society. As a teacher, we need to push in education that female voices in that class are heard, but also things like female participation. It's 50-50 until they become adolescents and it drops off. I think we need to be more empowering to young females, particularly from adolescents to 20 years of age, showing them that everything is possible, whether it's a career in our defence forces, whether it's a career as an educator, whether it's a career in politics. But it's going to need educational
Fostering, I think.
It does.
Yeah,
it does.
yeah,
And
yeah. I love that word because
Yeah.
when you said it, I said that's correct. Like you need someone to
But
hold.
I don't know, can we impose and say, this politician must be a female, this one must be a male? I think that could be over-engineering,
yeah.
but it's the pathway to that we need to foster, and it goes beyond politics. It really does, and it fostering confidence, ability, female leadership. Leadership has many roles. It's not just political. Fostering female leadership from ages 12 to 18, 19, 20 is so important, I would think.
Yeah, so you are the right person to start pushing the buttons. Some ideas are coming now. So.
Yeah, definitely. No, it's essential. Only then will we get a parliament that kind of reflects society.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So I have 2 questions coming up.
Sure.
So one is in regard to the last, unfortunately, such a disaster. What was the storm? And I know you were hands-on and you were involved and all of that. But I heard something in one of our local groups and prompted me to, made me thinking. The political landscape in Romania, where I'm coming from, and in Ireland is completely different. So every politician in Romania, just for a bit of a context, has their own job. They have their own job, and then the politics is pure passion and whatever. So here is different. But someone made a comment. Why would a TD get involved? That's not politics.
Yeah, it's true. It's true to a point. Like, yeah. Maybe. Yeah.
Is it or is it not? I'm still not clear, but I know you have an answer.
Yeah, it is true to a point. If you look up my job description, I'm supposed to be a legislator. So if we take that strictly as it's defined, my job should be Monday to Friday, creating laws for Ireland, changing laws for Ireland, and being a parliamentary representative. However, that's not always the reality. I also represent a constituency, County Clare. So within that constituency, there's 120,000 voters, people, I should say. They're not, some are too young to vote, but they need to be represented as well. So it's the legislation role is very clear. The representation role is rather different. The representation role is everything and anything. This is the part of it I probably really enjoy. It's so varied. During the storm, you cannot sit idly by, stay silent when you know there's communities lacking resources, not getting the attention they need, vulnerable people, older people living on their own. So for that reason, politicians intervene, and they should intervene. We also have to be careful. I had people telling me during this crisis, hang on a minute, if you're asking us to prioritise this person, that means there's a family, 200 metres down the road, we're not prioritising. So you have to be very careful with that. I'm always very careful with health issues. Sometimes families would phone me and they'd say, our elderly mother must get into hospital this minute. But I'm always quite careful with that, because if I phone or interfere in that, I don't have medical knowledge. I'm interfering in a medical process, and by doing so, I'm ensuring that someone goes ahead of somebody else on the list. So you have to be very careful. It is a huge part of what I do. There's 120 queries a day come in with representational stuff. In other countries, politics doesn't work like that. It does in Ireland. I think it's always going to be an important feature, and it ensures that people in our county and in our country feel some way connected with politicians. I met a mayor from Italy a few years ago, and a mayor of a small town. And he had like 6 or 7 secretaries and officials with him, and you almost couldn't touch this guy. He was so important, he was untouchable.
Yeah. That's exactly what he's like.
I think that's an awful way to politics. You should be able to. Your politician should feel like you. He or she. We need to get more women in.
Yes,
but they should look like you. They should talk like you. They should represent your views. You should identify with them. They should be available and accessible. That's the way in Ireland. But like, I know some countries, society can be a bit more threatening to politicians, but it's devastating in the United States to see when their president or their secretaries, minister, the amount of police protection. I don't know. That's reality there.
Yeah, exactly.
Not for me.
Yeah. So thank you so much for being vulnerable, and bringing clarity. I think it's very important in moments of crisis. Clarity solves so much, and communicating clearly what way you like, I am only talking to you and I can only say about you what way you approach your job and the politics. How do you balance the family life, if there is a balance there? I think you do balance, but
it's the number one job, I would say. I won't always be a politician. Someday I'll either retire or lose an election and I'll be out of it. But my family will still be there for me. So I have to invest time with them. And I would be devastated that if my children were in their 20s or 30s and they said, we never saw Dad growing up because he was too busy for us. So they're at a young age. I build my day around them, and sometimes I bring them to things. So that'll become more difficult. I'll explain how that works. So on Saturday, I have to go to some nice functions. I have to meet a residence group, and I know when I go there's going to be lovely tea and cakes. So I'll bring the kids, and they'll eat cakes, and we'll go to a playground. They'll come along with me. Now, another few years, they won't have that interest in going. I try to bring them along to things. If I'm going to something nice, like a match or something, I'll definitely bring them with me. But apart from that, I don't always try to wedge the two together. I make sure that at weekends and certain nights of the week that I'm home with them. I tuck them in a bed, read them a story, get out and play with them. I go to all of their sports and activities at the weekend. I make a point of going to that. And if a group looks to meet me on the weekend, they can meet me after 2:00 or something, because the morning is absolutely for the family. I wouldn't have it any other way. And I think I could maybe be more successful in politics if I surrendered some of that and devoted myself more and more and more to Dublin and being a more prolific politician. But I've decided that there's a balance to be struck here, and I've also decided that when I'm not working in Dublin, I try to get home out there as quick as I can to do constituency work and to be with my family.
Yeah, that was my next question. So tell us a little bit about the clinics. Is there a model what you picked from somewhere, or you created this model?
When I was younger, I used to work for a little while with Willie O'Dea, the TD in Limerick, and he's outstanding. I think he's 71 or 72 years of age, and his energy and his commitment to politics has never changed in all of those years. So clinics are really important. They're not necessary is the first thing.
Oh yeah, totally.
Because a lot of people a huge amount of younger people email me, and I email them back 1 hour later. The issue is already moving and progressing. A lot of older people like to meet me in person. A lot of people in rural areas like to meet me in person. A lot of people also feel sensitive.
We met in person. I came to your clinic because I felt like it's more, to me, because I'm doing the coaching in person so much.
Yes.
I think that is different approach.
You can read more about a person than just a few lines of a paragraph, but definitely there's value to it. People are also sensitive to the geography of politics. So I live in South East Clare. So somebody in West Clare might say, we like Cathal, but he lives 1 hour, 15 minutes from us. So I'd say to them, well, don't worry, I come to your community every week. I make a point of doing that. So the format of a clinic is very simple. It's usually 30 minutes to an hour. And maybe every 12 or 15 minutes, I meet someone. I get their important details. I listen to their story. I give them time. Now, it's not a huge amount of time because I need to meet the next person. Once I get their details, I have my laptop or my phone. I email all of their information to myself. And then when I'm back in the office, I work on that issue and I get back to them. So that's how it works. And it's a part of politics I enjoy because it gets me out of the office. I could stay in the office all day, wait for them to come in to me, but I prefer getting out and seeing the county.
Do you think that they played a huge difference when you campaigned and in your success?
I think it's a factor because you can legitimately say to a community, a lot of people love saying, we never saw you since the last election. But I can say to them, you mightn't have, but I was in your local community hall every fortnight. I did clinics, I was available. And I think the community feels connected with me and I feel connected with them. I can also then, when I'm speaking in the Dáil, I can say I have an understanding of that community because I go back there, I meet people, I see storm damage in that community. I can relate that real life experience to what I do as a representative.
You can translate people's problems and struggles if you are going and getting
You have to experience things to see.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's very important because it's important for us who are living in those areas that someone is coming and knows you feel like you're part of the community. How do you manage to get up in the morning at 6, being in Dublin by 11, coming back to Clare in the same day? You are traveling a lot by the train, is it?
Yeah,
and you're cycling and all of that.
Love the train and the bike. And look, is it helping Planet Earth? Of course it helps Planet Earth to go on a train, but that's not my number one reason. It saves so much time and it's so much more relaxing. I used to drive to the Dáil from County Clare and it would take me 3 hours to go up, and going home could take me 4.5 or 5 hours because of city traffic.
Yeah.
So now, and I would listen to the radio and phone people, but now I go on the train and I might send 40 emails, have my tea, maybe have my sandwich, listen to some music on the way up. I don't feel tired. I feel energized. I feel I'm getting way more work done. And then I cycle at the other end of it. So I've always cycled all through my life. It's fresh air flowing through your lungs. You feel a bit awake. You go in feeling good. I also farm at home. My dad and I farm, and it's wonderful.
So you are farming with your dad?
Yeah, and it's really wonderful at and my wife farms as well with us. It's really good this Wednesday morning being an example. I had to get a train to Dublin, but before that, I was up farming at 6:30 in the morning, and it's just dark. And I have a head torch on my head, and I talk with the cattle sometimes and say, "Good morning, girls," when I go into the shed. I feed them. I make sure they have water. I check if any calves have been born overnight. And it's someone said to me recently, that's not farming, that's mindfulness, and that's getting it is.
And it is.
It really
now
is.
I have clear picture why you are so like
it's escapism.
And it's the connection with the nature, Cathal. We are part of it. And you are staying connected to animals, to the ground.
To turn off your phone and to know an animal and know if she's healthy or if her calf is coming, or we pet goats as well. And look, I just think it's wonderful to start a day up on the farm on top of a hill in the dark. And before I leave the farm to go to Dublin, the sun is rising, and I look forward to having my breakfast
sanity.
On the train.
That's exactly. That's sanity. Yeah. And then you go into the politics with the mental health, with your meditation done, with your grounding done.
And the neighbours are shocked because I drive up to the farm in a hoodie that's ripped and there's paint all over it. And I come down then in the shirt and tie when I drive down the avenue. It's juggling life, but it's a great start to a day. And I have to do it as well in the evening to feed the cattle again, but it's good.
What role do you play in the current Dáil now?
So the Taoiseach 2 weeks ago appointed ministers. I'm not a minister, but so I'm what's called a
Not
backbencher. Not yet. We all in politics live in hope. But I'm what's called a backbencher. So I'm a part of government, but I'm not a minister leading out government. So I vote with government. And then we have spokesperson roles. At the moment, I'm spokesperson on tourism and aviation. Now that might change. I hope some part. I do enjoy that role, but it's up to the Taoiseach to decide that. So in my personal life, I'd have some knowledge and expertise on farming and teaching because I was an educator. But I loved the last few years taking on tourism and aviation because I don't know if you remember earlier in the podcast, I said I thought about becoming a pilot before.
Yes, you did. And that prompted me towards it, yeah.
So the Taoiseach said, would you become aviation spokesperson? And my eyes lit up. I said, whoa. So first thing...
I actually have in my mind a picture with you in the airplane.
Yes.
You have on social media a picture.
That's right. I think it's my profile picture though. So the minute I heard this, I said, right, I have a passion for this. My bedroom when I was a kid had airplanes with fish line hanging off the... Just love airplanes. So I took on that with full energy. I visited Shannon Airport every week. I got to know the workers. I got to go into airplanes and I had a passion for what they wanted and I was able to represent it. And tourism is so important in Clare. So I loved that role. I hope the next role I get is either that one again or something as interesting because if you've passion for something, you will drive it on. If you're disinterested, you may not lead out that role so well. So we'll see what the next few weeks involve.
And I know this is not a very nice topic, but I need to ask, what is your takeaway on the hospital in Limerick? Or where do you stand? And Limerick.
So if we go, my mother's a retired nurse. When she was nursing, that Limerick Clare area had 5 hospitals with accident and emergency care. Now we have 1. No one can tell me that that's progress. It isn't. The population of our region has gone up and the access to healthcare has gone down. That's woeful. In 2009, a political decision was taken to close Ennis and Nina and St. John's.
Why political?
They said it was going to be a centre of excellence in UHL. So all of the resources next week, let's bring them to one centre. And if you have a heart attack in County Clare, you'll go to Limerick and you'll get better care there.
Which makes sense to a certain point. Yeah, exactly.
But they didn't implement that fully. The first thing to make that a success, the first thing they were told by health experts, you need to put 300 beds into UHL hospital to make that work. It didn't happen. So they under-invested, under-resourced, under-supported. And now the whole thing has slid way down, to the point where people have died in hospital, and we can only fix that by reopening an accident emergency department. So we are going to report on that this year, and it's a red line issue for me politically. The Midwest needs another hospital, and I'm of the firm view that should be in Clare, and that's the view I'm trying to represent in Dáil Éireann.
Okay, perfect. So we have there the strongest person to talk for us. Hopefully.
Yeah.
What was the best outcome what you got in your political career? You told us about the worst, like the challenging
COVID,
COVID. Yeah.
The best, it's cliched, but it's getting little projects and things approved. We deal with a lot of homeless people in my office, and some of their stories are absolutely tragic. And just before Christmas, 15 of those people got keys for houses. They've moved in. Like that just has transformed life for them. So things like that would be...
I have a question there because when I did the campaigning for the canvassing, I knew there are a lot of empty houses in the rural area.
Sure.
But it was shocking to see how many empty, abandoned houses are in rural. And I know it's rural Ireland, but Clare is not any different. So why do you think is that? Like, is there a solution? Is there someone who is looking at those places and kind of incorporate that in the context of crisis?
Yeah, I think for years.
I'm coming from a place of being a citizen,
Yeah.
like being part of the community, and we are renting. We are not having our own house yet, but it's very like I would get one of those in a second and make it like if I can. But I know the legislation and I don't understand the context. That's why I'm asking. I'm very curious.
So for years, I think as a society, we looked at these houses and they're no good and we'll just let them fall down. And a lot of these houses have broken windows and pigeons and birds live inside them. Now, the housing crisis still continues. It hasn't been solved. The government approach now is that we will give people money. There's a range of grants, but the maximum grant is up to 70,000. If there's a derelict house, if there's a vacant house, we give people money to make them homes again. So if all of this works, and it is working in some parts of Clare, there's two wins. The first win is a family gets a home, which is incredible. It's stability, it's everything. The second win is if you take a small West of Ireland village, there might be only 4 families living on the street, but 100 years ago, everyone lived on the street. So when we bring these old houses back, it brings vibrancy and life back to a village again. The school is going better, the shop, the pub, the post office. So there's a double win. And I think I'm a rural boy. I grew up in County Clare, but I think the quality of life that a county like Clare or Galway or Kerry or Limerick can offer, in my mind, is better than city life. I know that's just my own opinion, but the more people we can facilitate.
It's not only you have another one opinion at least here.
Yeah, it's a good way to live, and I live in a part of Clare. I'm not. People in Dublin think I live up the hills, and I don't. I live about 10 or 12 minutes from Limerick City, 15 minutes from Shannon. It's a good place to live, and I think you can have a life where in a rural village again that makes sense, and you're reared by more than your family. You're reared by the people of that village. And I think if we get back to that, our society will be a lot better.
Okay, so there is someone who is thinking about that. So that's good.
Yeah, and money helps every situation. And now the government is giving money to help families to do just that. Yeah.
Okay. So thank you so much for being with us.
No problem.
And being with me and accepting my invitation. And do you have any question what you want to ask me?
Gosh, yeah, I hadn't planned to ask a question, but I know a huge part of your work is helping people make lifestyle adjustments and all. So, I suppose the one thing I would see from colleagues is I think politics is rough on one's physical health, mental health, energy levels. Diet isn't always good. We're always going here, there, eating dinner in the car on your lap, working too many hours. So I'm going to ask you a question at the end. How do you think those of us who work in politics can get a more balanced health life so that we live a bit longer and have a better quality of life?
Yeah, exactly. I think preparation and anticipation would be my answer. So when you plan ahead, include this as your part of your priority. And you probably know already what is prioritized in your mind, it gets done. So think of you can't function if you are not well physically and mentally. So that should be, from my point of view, your first priority as family and health. So from that perspective, I would be part of my planning, my agenda. So how can I do this week to make sure that my eating is 80% healthy?
Yes.
I can't control everything, but my rule is 80-20. So if 80% of the time I'm eating okay, the body will make it up for the 20%. If I do 2 days a week or if I have a busy week, I would say 1 day a week, I'm going for a long walk or going to the gym, doing a sauna, something what will pick one thing and always start small and build towards. Like, don't think I'm doing this year, I'm going to prioritize and do everything. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
But pick one thing.
And I think that's the problem with January. People think, even though we're in February, people still think they're going to change everything. But it's not bad advice.
It's exactly switch perspectives from your politics. You are never going to answer favorably all the 138 or 83 demands what you are getting into your email, but you are going to do 30. And
Yeah.
that's okay. So that's exactly. Don't achieve everything what needs to be done. Like think of, okay, I can one meal be healthy. How am I going about that this week? And then once you have that meal, you will start feeling better. And then you will be motivated to do. I never saw anyone implementing one habit and saying, oh, that's rubbish. I'm not doing it. It's not worth it. I only saw, you know what? I'm not hungry actually when I'm eating that way. I'm not picking sheep after I eat.
Yes.
So I'm feeling more, I sleep better. You are very fortunate that you are sleeping well. A lot of people are having issues with sleeping because they don't manage well stress and all of that. But I think in your case, it's the grounding in the farm and all of that. It's so important.
And my plans, Miranda, whenever politics ends, I'm going to delete loads of social media apps because I just...
Yeah, I think social media is hugely detrimental.
And I worry actually for my own children and their age group as they grow up. It's getting tougher and tougher. So
exactly. And to me, I know it's a lot of discussion worldwide about ADHD and why it's so prominent and the numbers are so increasing now and all of that. And some people are saying it's diet. I know it's diet and sugar and carbs and ultra processed plays a huge role, but equally is phones.
Yeah.
Equally. Like we have them on the phones and on the screens, on the PlayStations, all of that since ever.
Yes.
So they're literally few months, and what you're doing, you put them in front of the telly to have them under control and have them quiet.
Yeah.
And that's completely alters the mental health for them. And then when they face the world, they are shocked. Yeah, so totally agree in that regard.
Yeah, hopefully sometimes movements go so far that it goes back full circle. So hopefully, I think parents and society will have to take more control of these devices, particularly for youngsters. So hopefully.
Exactly. Or we have to get skilled how to manage those things and navigate one way or another, because otherwise they're going to affect us not in a nice way.
Correct. So true.
So thank you again.
Thank you so much.
And I look forward to see where you are going in the politics and in your life. And thanks again.
Thank you. And thanks so much for having me on. And well done for this wonderful podcast series you're running as well. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you.
Thank you.